Our text is from John chapter 7. But when the brothers had gone up, then he also went up to the feast, not openly, but as it were, in secret. So Jesus had told his brothers that he would not go to the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem, or that he would not yet go. But after they had gone, he went secretly. And in a very similar way, the Lord comes secretly to the feasts of our own life, and he works with us in mysterious ways that we're not at all aware of. And our question today is, so why is this? Why so secret? Wouldn't it be better if there weren't any secrets of that nature? And another thing is that one of the main purposes of his coming into the world was to make himself visible, so that he could be known and therefore loved and therefore obeyed. And yet, although his government is in a sense transparent and we understand it or can understand it, in truth, we don't see it happening, and it remains largely mysterious to us. And he operates invisibly in the world. And even more than that, many people wonder if the Lord is not in certain ways actually deceptive, creating a world in which harmful things are attractive and seemingly harmless, and giving us teachings that sometimes appear to be untrue and misleading, or at least confusing. So our topic today is the reason behind these kinds of mysteries. And even though the motto of the new church is that now it is permitted to enter with the understanding into the mysteries of faith, a motto that is engraved on the door at the back of the church, there are still secrets. And the answer to these puzzling questions that spring from the Word to life's riddles, they're just not immediately obvious. And our topic, therefore, is why this is so. So in our lesson from John, Jesus was in Galilee, up in the north, because the religious authorities were looking for him and actually intended to kill him. Our story takes place in October, at the time of the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot, as it's called, which actually kind of begins this very Saturday with Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot begins the very last day of September. And it was one of the feasts that everyone pretty much was required to go to. So his brothers criticized him not going, and they criticized his concealment, saying, "Show yourself to the world." And interestingly, when they say, "Show yourself to the world," the comment then is, but they didn't believe in him. Most people don't even realize that Jesus had brothers, but he had brothers, and curiously, they did not believe in him. And so they were urging him. They didn't take the threats to his life seriously. They were urging him, go on. Don't make yourself secret when you want to be known. Now, in the New Testament, there is kind of a running theme about people seeing and people not seeing. People who don't believe, they don't see. The lack of belief causes a lack of awareness. So the scribes and Pharisees are therefore called fools and blind, who cannot discern the signs of the times. They can't see because they don't believe. And then the Lord sorrowed over Jerusalem, saying to it, "If you had known, even you, in this your day, the things that make for your peace, but they are hidden from your eyes." They were hidden because they did not believe or obey the teachings that would have made for their peace. And throughout the New Testament, people who don't believe often demand explanations and proofs. Jesus' brother said, No one does anything in secret while he himself seeks to be known openly. If you do these things, show yourself to the world. And similarly, the scribes and Pharisees demanded signs. And the Lord said to them, a wicked and adulterous generation seeks after a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. That is, this sign is that Jesus would be 3 days in the tomb, just as Jonah was 3 days in the belly of the fish. A pretty obscure explanation. So why such an enigmatic response? And the answer might be surprising. The answer, put simply, is that it is better that things be unknown than that they be seen clearly and then denied. And you would think that if the answer and the reason was clear to everyone, then everyone would accept it. But there are two things going on here. One is that the truth is that even if it was completely clear, many people would deny it. And the other is that the state of denial itself is one that often cannot be penetrated by reasons. And so that clarity is simply an impossibility in the face of denial. And another way, simply to put this, is that evil closes the mind. It closes the mind to the truth. And so we read in the Arcana Celestia about what is called the negative principle, or the negative attitude. It says, people who adopt the negative principle or attitude towards the truth of anything in the Word say in their hearts that they would be willing to believe if persuaded on rational grounds and by facts. But these are such as never believe, not even if they were convinced by means of the evidence of their own physical senses of hearing, seeing, and touch. They would always be producing new reasonings against such things. And in doing so, they would at length completely destroy all faith. They would completely destroy all faith by denying it, even though it was completely clear. And now this is speaking of people who genuinely don't believe. And of course, there are lots of other people, ourselves included, who have reasonable doubts about things, reasonable doubts, and eventually come to accept the truth over time. So the very purpose of the secrecy and obscurity is to protect these people and to allow changes to take place over time to prevent anyone from being forced to choose before they're ready, and ultimately to leave everyone free to choose their own destiny. It's strange that a lack of understanding can be a tool of freedom when we normally think that truth is the tool of freedom and that knowledge brings freedom. And of course, both are true, but in different ways. And so the Lord spoke in parables. When the disciples said, "Why do you speak in parables?" He said, "Because seeing they don't see, and hearing they don't hear." And commenting on this, the writings explain that those who are not ready to believe would deny and profane the truth if they saw it, which is worse than not understanding. Meanwhile, the stories themselves are easily understood, and they're easily accepted, and they're grasped and held in the mind until the time comes when they can be genuinely understood and then grasped more deeply. So Jesus said to his brothers, "My time has not yet come. Your time is always ready. You go up to the feast. I'm not yet going up to this feast, for my time has not yet fully come." That is, when the time was right, he would show himself. And in fact, he does show himself in this same chapter. When the time was right, he would then force a decision. So in the meantime, before that time comes, he remains concealed. So why did he go secretly to the feast when he said he would not go? He went because he's never actually absent. I mean, he's always there. He's always working with us, but he does it in secret. And the reason he goes in secret is because his life was in danger. And that's made clear. The whole chapter before, it's about how they're seeking him to kill him. And that is also the reason why he's hidden in our own lives, because there are elements present in every person that do not welcome the Lord. And if those were not there, if we didn't have those elements, then we would see everything just the way that the angels do. And an aspect of this is that the Lord's secrecy, it's not an absolute secrecy, it's a relative secrecy. He's sometimes more secret, sometimes more open. It's not an all or nothing situation. He's never completely invisible, and neither is he ever completely known. Even to the highest angels, they don't see him completely and fully, because everyone sees and understands the Lord in his own way and in their own degree, to their own degree, and this way changes over time as we go through our lives. So the people were seeking Jesus, and they were asking about him, and some said, he's good. Others said, no, on the contrary, he deceives the people. And similarly, there's a continual debate in our own minds about what's right and what's wrong, and whether a certain situation is the way that it ought to be, if it's consistent with the goodness and truth, or whether it's not. And we go back and forth in our minds, and these things are constantly being questioned around us in our lives, and sometimes we see it more clearly, sometimes we see it less clearly. The Lord's presence and protection with us is not obvious, because in many ways, he's protecting us from ourselves. If we saw, as we read, if we saw how he works to thwart our desires, we wouldn't be happy. His protection isn't about saving our natural lives. His protection is not about ensuring our material success. It's about furthering our spiritual life and bringing us eternal happiness. And this can seem to be at odds with temporal happiness. So the Lord works in hidden ways to foster his agenda, not our own. That is, the Lord does not help us in the way that we would always want to be helped. And a lot of the time, he's actually leading us away from the ways that we think he ought to be helping us. So we read in Divine Providence, similar to what we read in our lesson, if a person were to clearly see or feel this withdrawal or diverting away from our own agenda, it would anger him, and he would regard God as an enemy, and from the evil of his native character would deny him. Therefore, lest a person become conscious of this, he is kept in a state of freedom. So he does not know other than that he is guiding himself. So we all guide ourselves through our own lives. That's the way it seems to us. That's the way it has to seem to us. And yet the Lord is always guiding us. And that's why he went secretly to the feast. The leadership regarded him as an enemy, just as we would if we clearly saw what he was doing. And so he said to his brothers, the world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify of it that its works are evil. It couldn't hate the brothers because they were just like everybody else. There's nothing unusual or outstanding about them. But he was testifying that the people's works are evil, so they didn't like him. Because nobody likes to be told that their works are evil. And yet the truth is that all of us are so spiritually distant from the Lord that we would be completely miserable and unhappy if the Lord did not secretly make things different with us. And so he works with us clandestinely. Another way to say this, and a beautiful and fascinating doctrine in the writings, is the doctrine of appearances, which says this, that the Lord joins people to himself by means of appearances. For it is an appearance that a person from himself loves the neighbor, does good, and speaks the truth. And unless these things appeared to people as if they were from themselves, they would not love the neighbor, do good, or speak the truth, and therefore they would not be joined to God. That is, the appearance that it's from ourselves enables us to do good things, to speak the truth, to feel like we're doing it, to feel like we actually love these things, and through the action of doing it over and over again in our life, even though we think it's from our own power, it changes us and makes us different people. So he doesn't tell us our works are evil. He makes us feel, as I'm sure we all do, that we're basically kind and decent people, and that we're the ones who do what we do. And our distance from him is hidden from us, because the more we perceive that distance, the more terrible and discouraged we would feel. And meanwhile, he works constantly to close that gap in 1,000 secret ways so that we can feel his love and so that we can enjoy the happiness that this love holds for us. Now, the way that the Lord's providence works to close the gap would also be incomprehensible to us, even if we did see it. So even if we saw it happening, it would make no sense to us. So his work with us is like the work of the builder in our lesson. He first amasses materials of every kind, piles them in heaps where they lie in no order at all, and what the palace made from them is to be like exists solely in the mind of the architect. So in our lesson, we also read a similar teaching, which is that this process is like what happens to a person in the company of an enemy who intends to kill him, an intention he's not aware of. And a friend leads him away by unknown paths and afterwards discloses to him his enemy's intention. So if you went and told the person before, watch out, he wouldn't believe you. And if you tried to explain it to him and lead him away, he would resist. But you lead him away secretly, it says by secret paths, and afterwards explain it, and then when he sees it, he can accept it. And this is one of the this is the good news about these secrets. The secrecy is temporary. They won't always be secrets. When the friend discloses the enemy's intention, the secret is out, and the person understands what just happened after the fact. And we can look back in our own lives and see things after the fact, that we were let out of situations that we didn't see at all at the time, but with the benefit of hindsight, we go, oh, that's what it was. And when it comes to secrets, people love secrets. People enjoy knowing secrets. Secrets can be very useful. Especially we enjoy telling secrets. If you know something's a secret and it doesn't need to be secret anymore and you can tell it, that's very, very fulfilling. And we regard it as a sign of friendship and trust. If somebody trusts us to tell us a secret, we like that. And so the Lord said to us, I no longer call you servants. The servant does not know what his master is doing. Rather, I call you friends. For all the things I've heard from my Father, I have made known to you. So the good news is that when the time is right, the secrets are revealed. So as we grow in our love and our understanding, we see things that we never saw before. Before something is built, plans often seem like they're impossible. We'll never be able to do that. But if you look back on those plans while looking at the finished product, they make a lot more sense. And the Lord himself did not remain hidden at that feast. He went up to that feast, and pretty soon he was preaching openly in the temple. And several months later, he rode openly and triumphantly into Jerusalem on a donkey, hailed as the king. Because then the time was right. The Lord predicted that when the time was right, he would come again and reveal all truth. And so Swedenborg writes in the work Conjugal Love, I was once in my spirit taken up to the angelic heaven and into one of its societies, and some of the wise there then came to me and said, what news do you have from earth? This is new, I said, that the Lord has revealed secrets which surpass in excellence all the secrets previously revealed from the inception of the church. And so when the time is right, the secret is revealed. So life is full of mysteries, and most of what happens in our world is hidden from all of us. What we observe, the things that we are aware of, are only the thinnest veneer of what's actually going on. And the actual workings of both the natural world and the spiritual world are really mysteries far beyond our perception and comprehension. And it's understandable that not everyone is going to be happy with this situation. It can seem strange and wrong that the truth is hidden, and that if only the truth was known, things would change. And it can seem strange and wrong that some things taught in the Word are so obscure and even misleading. But at the same time, it's always true that an open heart can receive a sight from the Lord that continually unlocks the doors of the Spirit and makes things clear in a miraculous way when the time is right. And so the Lord said in the Gospel of Mark, "For there is nothing hidden which will not be revealed, nor has anything been kept secret, but that it should come to light." Amen.